welcome to episode 8 of Aussie Libertarians. Fintan Barrett and Lloyd Del Rosario here. We are, for the first time, actually joined by a guest. We're joined by Connor Whittle, who is the... He said he was going to do some big dramatic radio voice for us there. I wasn't expecting that. But, all right. He is the branch organiser for the Liberal Democratic Party, which is Australia's libertarian/classical liberal party. He is also going to be running in the seat of Canning. A by-election in the seat of Canning was triggered recently with the passing of the local Liberal member. So Connor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to libertarianism and then how you got involved in the party?
All right, thanks for asking that. So it kind of began, as a lot of these libertarian stories do, in my being a teenager on the internet. I started learning about Ron Paul during 2008, but I was quite the lefty socialist.
Just like us.
It happens. Then during 2012, I travelled around the world, going to Europe for a couple of months, United Kingdom, going through and Eastern Europe. And then after that, spent 2 months in the United States. And that was a real eye-opening experience. I like to say that going to Europe was, seeing 50 different countries, all of them, a lot of the people can kind of speak English. Going to the United States is almost 50 different countries, and they almost speak English too.
Almost. Did you manage to make it to New Hampshire when you were there?
No. I think I might have passed it in the distance.
I thought you were going to say you might have gone to Porkfest or something like that.
No. This was when Ron Paul was still pretty big, so I was meeting lots of libertarians, getting around, backpacking, and I was introduced to all sorts of ideas.
So that's actually what I want to ask you, Connor. What was so eye-opening about your time in the United States in particular?
It was a big kind of culture shock in that I had these preconceived notions of the United States as being just a single culture of strange English speaking, but not quite us.
Yeah.
It's what the stereotype of Americans. We all have them. And then going to the United States and finding that it's a whole bunch of different countries basically.
Yeah.
They are so different from one end of the country to the next. You travel in an area the size of Western Australia, and Western Australia is pretty much one culture. Yeah. But it's so varied and so different in the US.
Yeah.
So that was a part of breaking down some barriers and breaking down some stereotypes. But it was also about finding how people live differently. I stayed with, for example, not quite the US, but almost America's hat, Canada. Staying with some rallies, who were the kind of lefty types, but in a nice area, no crime. And then going immediately over the border, I walked across the Rainbow Bridge between the United States and Canada at Niagara Falls, and immediately I go from the Canadian Las Vegas to basically an American slum.
Right.
And quite very interesting to have a look around, but you're just told not to go into some neighbourhoods. That's upstate New York. And then going down south to Florida, basically lived with a millionaire, rich granduncle of a sort, who lived in an ivory tower, the ivory tower Republican sort of archetype. And then went over to Houston, where I met some Canadians, friends of Morelli's in Canada, who introduced me to Texas. And they asked me, what do you want to see when you're in Texas? And I said, well, it's Houston, so I want to go to NASA. I want to eat some big burgers, and I want to shoot some guns.
Yep.
Yeah. And pardon the pun, I had a blast.
Yeah.
It was, in fact, there's footage of me on Facebook shooting some SKS variant with a big detachable box magazine. The story about how these weapons came about, fantastic. So these Canadian guys the couple I'm staying with, they say, we just got a pistol we haven't ever used, but our neighbour, he's got an arsenal. And so go over to the neighbour, and the bloke's not home, but his wife is, and the most wonderful Southern Belle sort of character. Oh, you're from Australia. Oh, that's fantastic. And we just walked into the bedroom, and he's a veritable arsenal of all these guns and everything. I'm just going, oh, this is fantastic. So yeah, spent the day on the range with Canadian friends of Relly's and had an amazing time. And I realised that although previous to that I only ever shot 22s and shotguns, it's these are the stereotypical assault rifles and assault weapons that you hear about on the news, and yet in this environment they're perfectly safe.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different culture.
That's right.
They're just things. This is a part of my big libertarian awakening, I guess you could say. And then going to Colorado after that, where it's basically pot and guns. Living with some Rellies who lived in a trailer park.
Yeah.
And then after that, going over to Hawaii and stuff, and that was for the 4th of July. That was good fun.
So you mentioned like every state you go to is kind of like going to a different culture. I mean,
it's a different country.
Yeah, I mean, is that kind of like rooted in the American idea of the rugged individual and also their emphasis on states' rights? Do you think that's to do with it?
Well, I think it comes down to the top of the governmental system which they have, in which it's very, very federalist, and only fairly recently has it become more, nationally amalgamated, like the Australian system.
Right.
It is. I keep saying it because it's true. It's 50 different countries, and they've had 200-something years of being 50 different countries.
Yeah.
All under a single flag, all mostly speaking English.
Right, like because it was only like prior to the Civil War that when people referred to the United States, they would refer to it in a plural way. They would say the United States are rather than the United States is, and so they still really kind of have that tradition now. Sounds like. Yeah,
that that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
To me, what I'm trying to tie this into is that it's this diversity. It's true diversity.
Right.
You hear in Australia the left talks about diversity, but it's not. It's just a single monoculture of actually some pretty totalitarian ideals.
It's more like forced integration rather than actual diversity. Whereas
it's sure people have got different skin colour, but they're all supposed to think the exact same thoughts and act the exact same way, and I think that's terrible.
It's like a dictatorship of political correctness or something.
Well, I think it's the real not quite Orwellian top down, but that everyone is bringing each other down. That's a real cliche thing to say, but it's this universal grab to the mean, the average.
It's as if there's a cultural tendency that we're all supposed to think a certain way, and if you don't adhere to that, it's somehow inherently wrong or something.
They don't like diversity of opinion.
That's it. Diversity of actual, the things that matter, of action and opinion. As long as you're not, as long as you're not hurting anyone.
Right. So, after you got into, all these libertarian ideas, I mean, what actually brought you to the party itself, and how did you get organising with them?
Well, I was studying up here in Perth doing a drafting course, and I heard through the tubes somewhere that the LDP was having a meeting. I'd heard about the LDP in high school, but never really properly registered with me as being a properly libertarian thing. It just dropped off the radar. And then hearing about the LDP doing stuff over east, and then they had a branch meeting. I was with a couple of classmates, and I said, here's this thing. I was telling everyone I was proselytising about libertarianism, and I do believe I've changed some people's lives to the better. We were talking before the show about how proper self-empowerment and self-responsibility go hand in hand. And bring these ideas up with some of the people who were going through some rough times, really help them, and so we went along to this meeting, and there was quite a few people, a lot more than my current meetings tend to draw, and it was yeah, that's kind of how I got involved, checking it out, talking to people. Eventually, through the LDP, I just said, free hands, dead keen to get involved. At the time, I was staying 3 nights in Perth a week. So I was, had plenty of time off here in Perth apart from studying, and I was helping out. That's when Graham Class was running the branch.
Right.
And then he stepped down, so this guy Neil Hamilton stood up. Then there was the 2013 elections, where Neil went in, and I think Graham and a couple other people, one Queenslander, for the federal election representing Western Australia.
Yeah.
He worked in the mines and he worked in the oil fields in Western Australia, so I thought he had a better argument than most sort of, I don't know, intellectuals and career politicians. And after that, Neil asked me to help out a lot more, so I did, and eventually Neil stepped down due to just work and family and things, and I took up the role, and I've been running it ever since, and been a real learning experience. Been pretty interesting.
Yeah, cool. So how did you end up becoming the party's candidate for Canning?
It was a bit unsure at first, but then pretty much a good argument from some of the guys over east, and convinced me to go. I'm very much, if you can present your ideas in a good, solid manner, I'm not tied down with any previous thing. If you make a good argument, I respect arguments.
Yeah.
And so, I've got some of the talent, I've got a lot of enthusiasm. So here I am, Connor Whittle, Liberal Democrat candidate for Canning.
Awesome. So, what is it like that the LDP wants to achieve in this election? Because, I mean, look, some of the commentary that we've been reading kind of says, well, LDP, don't have a chance. Of course, they said that about, David Lionhelm in Victoria as well.
Oh, they say that about us if we had a 98% chance of winning.
So, I mean, okay, let's say you've got no chance. What actually is the point in running? Is it just to kind of get all the ideas out there?
Yeah, okay, so being honest, we might not win this election. I've got to break that to some of you guys. But what we're going to be doing is, hey, we are libertarians we're breaking the ice in Western Australia. The LDP has been possibly one of the most vocal and effective ways in the past few years in Australia of telling people, hey, look, there's this thing called libertarianism. This is what it's about. This is what you can do with it. Basically, if you're a responsible person, government has no right to tell you what to do. It's a little bit more nuanced than that at times. But so this is us. We're telling people. We're bringing that out in the open, and it's really attractive to a lot of people, as it should be.
And you mentioned before that you've had some personal experiences with empowering people with the ideas of libertarianism through taking more responsibility and individualism. So is that how you approach the political spectrum when it comes to ideas like whether we should have more state funding for things or whether the free market should take care of it? Like, where do you stand on those ideas?
So, yeah, I'm trying to bring my personal experience with it's a cliche word, self-empowerment, but through libertarianism, through self-responsibility. Personally, my background is I was quite a large person at the end of high school, really not socially capable at all. I was 120 kilos just in the final weeks. I had long James May sort of haircut. Yeah, I've got some photos laying around. I'll put them up on Facebook for you guys. And I basically started taking responsibility for myself, saying, look, hey, no one else is going to make me lose weight. No one else is going to get me out there. Get out talking to people. Be the person who I want to be. And I took responsibility. and I lost 40 kilos. I've since found 15 of those back.
Right, so you didn't find a government program then that
No.
made you lose weight?
No, it was just bucket loads of hard work.
And you didn't want to ban McDonald's at any time during
No.
that?
Don't want a soft drink tax?
Although as some people will discover, and have discovered to their chagrin, I do not go to McDonald's, and I haven't been for more than 15 years.
Okay.
It at first,
So I thought they were
it's just an
funding your
anecdote.
campaign.
Yeah, no, that's the guys who make Adler shotgun or something. Gina Reinhardt also, yeah. Gina, give money, flocks. No, I think in primary school I found out, I remember that I didn't go to Macca's for years, and I just decided to make it a thing. So it's just a thing. I do go to Hungry Jack's. It's not out of health concerns. It's just
You got a good taste.
It's
then.
just a combo. It's just I don't want to break this combo.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. So there has been a lot of talk as to the order of the ballot, whose name appears first. Palmer United Party appear first on the ballot. Liberal Democrats number 2. When we had the federal election, a lot of people said that the similarity of name with the Liberal Party, and also the fact that the Liberal Democrats drew number 1 on the ballot, had a big part to play in David Leyonhjelm's victory. Do you agree with that at all?
There was, I think that there was definitely an element of that. But the point, I think, to overstate it too much would be a mistake. It's often brought up because it's a pretty easy thing to say, like, oh, David got injured a donkey vote, and people being confused. The way I understand it is there were also Liberal ads out at the same time saying, hey, look, Liberal Democrats aren't Liberals.
Right.
Don't vote for these guys. Yeah, that's going to work in Australia. Hey, Australia, don't vote for these guys.
Yeah.
Sincerely, Liberal Party.
So do you think they shot themselves in the foot with that?
If that was true, then yeah, that would be a big part of it. It's also the thing that David was, he was out there at the time saying some pretty new stuff to a lot of people. Okay, there's an element of donkey vote. There's an element of people getting confused. But
And the preference system too, maybe? Did that help?
well, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not fully versed in the whole preference thing. But as that might apply to Western Australia, if the LDP gets a bucket load of votes, and the Liberals at this point whinge and complain, or everyone else whinges and complains, going, oh, look, people are just confused, or it was just, some element of donkey vote, then that doesn't hold water at this moment, because too many people have been told about it.
Right.
It's, that's past its use by now.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you never heard them before, like, complaining about Liberals for the forests, or, the Labor Party complaining about the Democratic Labor Party. I mean, there's always been a lot of parties with similar names, so it just seemed like kind of sour grapes to me.
Well, yeah, I think if you're in Australian politics, you want to make a party, just have something with L in the name, and then somewhere in Australia, as part of the name, just L and A, or you can put P or D or something like that, or just go nuts. Okay, yeah, Liberal Democrats at the moment sounds like a bit of an acme name. But some other people have already got Libertarian Party of Australia. Well, that's an argument for another day.
That's right, I saw that the other day. Yeah.
I'm not sure how they're going. Their page, they didn't fund it anymore.
Okay. Probably going nowhere fast then. Don't know.
Well, all the best to them, but yeah.
What's been your perception so far of people's reaction to libertarianism?
A lot of people, it's still pretty new. Sure, you're going to have a lot who are very well established in their ideas, already understand libertarianism and don't agree, or hear about it for the first time and go, nope, that doesn't fit in with my worldview, don't like it, go away. But for people who are first learning about it, it's really powerful. It may not get, a lot of people immediately jumping ship, but it's this whole, you've been taught your whole life, hey, look, the government's here to take care of you, cradle to grave, we're going to tax you a whole bunch, and we're going to give, a bunch back, and if you whinge hard enough, you'll get that road you want. And people are getting, we're finding out in one way or another that the old lies don't work. and hey, look, here's this self-contained, internally consistent philosophy going, no, you can't just take money, you can't just take things from people, you can't mess around with society and just suddenly expect it to work. It's I think society is far too complex for governments to handle.
So do you think David Leyonhjelm has been pushing that message pretty well?
Oh, I think he's been doing a fantastic job of it. I think he's already put out more speeches and got more media coverage. I think he's put out more speeches than any previous parliamentarian for the time in office, and he gets plenty of media coverage. And he's sure, he is kind of controversial, but that's what we need, because it is controversial stuff. If everyone's going, I want to steal from Paul and give to Peter, and then the other guys are going, nah, mate, we want to steal from Peter and give to Paul, and someone comes along and goes, hey, don't steal. Government hates competition.
Right.
It is a brand new thing, and it's blowing people's minds. It's great.
Yeah, because while we've got like a classical liberal kind of tradition in Australia, which I think kind of died out a while ago, like the real kind of purist libertarian stuff seems to be kind of an American thing. So like really in Australia, not many people have heard of it.
Well, it's not mainstream, but to say that the quality of it isn't there would be incorrect. We don't have the quantity, but we do have the quality. We have people all over the libertarian spectrum who are world leaders and always have been. Just that naturally we've got less. For example, more local one, Ron Manners, fantastic guy doing great things for free markets throughout not simply Western Australia, but now he's producing world-class young adults going out there giving lectures to the Hong Kong Parliament on how to conduct themselves better in free markets. Hong Kong telling them to do free market better.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
That's it.
Okay. So ever since David Leyonhjelm's election, has the party experienced like a significant spike in membership and attention?
And the numbers. I'm privy to a lot of the numbers, and we're growing pretty strongly actually. Every time that there's a controversial issue which, we know we've got an answer to, people wake up and go, oh, well, okay. We've, historically you think you've got a bit of a clash between, say, the big ones, guns versus pot. It's what someone said, I think, was it Gary Johnson or someone said in the United States, if the pro-pot people learn to love guns and the pro-gun people learn to love pot, America would have a libertarian president, within
right. Yeah,
the next election.
Yeah. I saw some meme that said I pray for a day where a married gay couple can protect their marijuana crop with AK-47s.
Yeah, it's the gays guarding ganja with guns argument.
That's the one. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you put it a lot better than I did.
I've got more puns than that, but they're not suitable for radio.
So do you think the Australian people, it's been a long time overdue to have a libertarian voice?
A mainstream libertarian voice, yeah.
Yeah.
With this sort of ability to reach out and shake people and go, hey, look, there's a new idea. It's maybe not necessarily we've been long overdue. It's just that the technology, if anything, hasn't been there for libertarians to really shine. Libertarians, if they're the people too, and they've for a while just been a minority, an absolute minority with no money, and those that do have money are still people, and they do have vested interest in other things, and they can't be against their own rational self-interest.
Yeah.
Because it'll be like, oh yeah, well, you're a multi-billionaire and you want to get rid of in all those government subsidies and stuff. Your board would throw an absolute fit, wouldn't
Right.
they? So, but now we've got the libertarianism is the political and the whole philosophical family of ideas that was made for dispersed creation through technology. It's we saw, okay, what do we see? We saw the rise of the state the big monolithic state with the rise of radio and television. It's where a single broadcaster puts out an idea to a lot of receivers. But here we have a totally new form of technology where everyone is content creators and content consumers at the same time. And the smallest guy can reach 1 billion people with a few well-placed words. And this allows this non-top-down information transfer is what will make libertarianism the dominant idea, the dominant philosophy, because, as I said earlier about myself, it's just about better arguments. Okay, maybe the Liberals, or maybe some people say, people vote for the LDP in mistake. Well, then you're just saying that people who vote Liberal, are necessarily default stupid. And a lot of people, people aren't stupid. You might make jokes about a group, but the individual is never as dumb as you make them out to be. And good arguments eventually get through. And that's what we've got the ability to do, is make great arguments and get them out there.
Yeah, it's exploded online. I mean, I kind of was drawn over to libertarianism by discovering Ron Paul, and the only way I could do
Ron
that
Paul.
was YouTube.
Yeah, that's it. I've got to mention Ron Paul throughout my big spiel about what made me a libertarian. It was it was basically Ron Paul.
On YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, and a bit of Adam Kokesh, but he's fallen off the radar.
You also mentioned that technology is sort of facilitating libertarian ideas to spread.
Technology is the greatest liberator.
Yeah.
The greatest liberator.
Because I was just going to mention, what do you actually think about companies like Uber? Because they're kind of only able to operate because of the growth in technology, and they're kind of seen as the perfect product of the free market, providing a solution where there was already an existing top-down heavy system that wasn't doing the job.
I wouldn't say Uber would be the perfect example of the free market. I do get your point. Uber is a fantastic new form of doing business, and it just cuts out so many unnecessary middlemen. It removes government interference. I see the closest form which we've got to perfect sort of market systems is actually the decentralized networks like Bitcoin and what is it, OpenBazaar?
Yeah.
These places, as I said, are not centralized. It is just peer-to-peer. So, for example, we had, old marketplaces, and now we've got eBay. eBay to marketplaces is what I think that these decentralized ones will be to eBay. They're a brand new, fantastic way of doing things, over the internet, eBays and Amazons and Google and whatever. But the more middlemen you can knock out, the more you can automate that process, just the more efficient and the more absolutely wonderful it will be.
And all the sales tax you could pay as well.
Yeah.
Very often. So, I mean, on that note then, as you're running for the seat of Canning, how effective, do you consider the political process, actually running for office, as opposed to, say, all of these technological ways of kind of working outside of the system?
So working inside the system, it does work. It's if it weren't for the political system, I don't think a lot of people would have heard about Ron Paul.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we're still, I think we're a real transitional phase here between the old media, the old systems, and these new information systems and these new ideas and these new people. But the old systems are entrenched and they're very, very powerful. And this is a way which you get a small part of that. And a small part of a massive pie is still, just like the economy as a whole, you'd rather have a tiny slice of massive pie than a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
So this is a way where we do educate people. The political process is still very powerful and will be for a long time to come.
So I take it you don't really, say, agree with someone like Stefan Molyneux, who says you should just stay out of the state as much as you can, and don't worry about politics, don't worry about running for office, just try and work outside of the system.
Well, it depends on on what your capabilities are. If you are a Stefan Molyneux sort of character and you can do a hell of a lot of good outside the political system, then that is the best thing for it. If your capabilities are not best served outside the political system, then, you know, try to do something inside the political system. It's about using the best of your skills and applying them in the best way possible.
Right. So I mentioned at the beginning here, I described the LDP as libertarian / classical liberal. From your own experience, like, how do you see the membership base? Like, do you see kind of a big kind of broad church of libertarians?
The LDP is, I think it's quite thoroughly, it does fit the definition of libertarian, as much as you can define libertarianism. In that, as
Will that include like flat taxes though, or, you know, negative income tax, stuff like that?
A taxation scheme is a bit more simplified than just basic negative income. It's what is it? $40,000 tax-free threshold, 10% after that.
Right.
Plus 10% GST. But the LDP is, as long as you agree that voluntary, or as long as you agree that consent in the situation is the prerequisite, then the LDP is for you. It is, as far as broad church can be, it is as broad church as it can be. I mean, we've got everything from traditionalist sort of classical liberals to fully fledged rah burn it down anarcho-capitalists. So, you know, it works pretty well. A lot of people in the LDP realise that we're just we're here to make the best message possible. We're here to break the ice in Australia for libertarianism in the best way that we can, and we're doing a great job of it. Sure, you know, the ABC or some of the real lefty media might latch onto David Leinhelm's comments about, you know, guns or something, and just go, this guy's a bastard. But it's all the people which we're reaching in the background, which we're changing. You know, we're changing the ground with, and I think that's a great thing.
Right. So, I mean, do you see the party's platform changing much in the future? I mean, like I mentioned, like, you know, the tax code just then. I mean, do you foresee, you know, the kind of hardcore burn it down anarchists saying, you know, let's like just actually have a no income tax policy, anything like that?
I think the LDP is. No, the LDP is not going to become, you know, fully anarchist, and at the same time, we're not going to become like old American libertarian Tea Party type. Right. We're not going to go to the further up the freedom scale. We're not going to go too far towards the, you know, night watchman state or whatever you want to call it. This average, I think, is what we're going to keep. Yeah, just. Although at the same time, we do promote other parties, other libertarian parties, where we are still, you know, hanging out for when someone makes the first anarchist party of Australia. We'll throw a big birthday bash for them or something.
Connor, one thing I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned Ron Paul as being an inspiration. What other libertarian thinkers have you personally drawn inspiration from?
Cody Wilson, the guy who made Defence Distributed and the first 3D printed gun.
Yes, of course. Because he actually used to be a left anarchist, I read, and then he kind of went in a libertarian direction when he discovered the Mises Institute, I think.
Oh, I'm personally not too sure. It's for me, it's the whole using technology as a vehicle of personal liberation. Other people who inspired me recently, Ron Manners, reading a little bit on Lang Hancock from what I've understood. I haven't researched too far into him. What is it? Stefan Molyneux. I'm sure there's more, which I've waxed and waned for hours about before, but now I just don't spring to mind.
You mentioned Adam Kokesh before, and and you said him, and you also mentioned Molyneux. I mean, you think some libertarians are a bit kind of nutty?
Oh, we're all a bit nutty. I mean, what other political parties and philosophies and ideological philosophies get their jollies off by just arguing with each other? Oh, that's another one. Speaking of argumentation, Ayn Rand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, while I was traveling, I was reading Atlas Shrugged. Oh no, that was afterwards. But yeah, still.
Okay. I watched the movies of that, and
Goodness gracious,
I want those hours of my life back.
I actually love terrible movies. I love them
because they're so bad, they're good.
Yes. I'm the worst person to rate movies. I'm like, I love that movie.
But that was the thing. Like, I sat through and I couldn't even laugh at how bad it was. It was just so bad. It was bad. That's all.
Yeah. It's not even like Starship Troopers sort of bad, where it's bad on the surface, but really actually pretty good because lots of detail in the background.
Yeah.
It's just pretty crap. It's hammy.
Yeah. All those years of anticipation for it, and that's what they.
And I was the guy who directed The Godfather. He actually asked Ayn Rand to do a Atlas Shrugged movie, and his only condition was basically, let me have control of the script. And Ayn Rand, being the wonderful lady that she is, went, that will not happen.
Yeah, I can see that as well, because my one criticism of Atlas Shrugged is that it is a little bit too preachy.
Well, this comes back. The Russian and Eastern European method of getting ideas across is not like the Western method. Russia, sure, they're whitish, but they're not Western necessarily. The Western idea is about you put these ideas out and you put them out in the public and you debate them and you have these really boring books at the end of it. Russian Eastern tradition is about getting the stuff out in story. It's preachy because it is a method, is a vehicle for moving these ideas across to other people.
Yeah.
That is its purpose. To say it's a bit preachy, well, it probably wasn't enough preachy. It's the wealth of nations, but with characters.
Yeah, true. I always found her non-fiction work to be much better, to be honest. I never cared for her. Now, I mean, Virtuous Selfishness and Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, I think they're really, really good books. I attempted to read Atlas Shrugged and I couldn't get past
I actually kind of liked it because of the almost this is part of the science fiction technological liberation aspects of it. The technology was the tool of man and used it was a great liberator, and misused it was just the scythe.
That's actually why I think that Iron Man 2 is a great libertarian film, because it's got all the libertarian themes there. He's basically solving humanitarian crisis by privatizing
defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Not quite to that extent, but have you guys heard of what's it called? It's an app. Bugger it. I'll put it on the as a link or something whenever I remember it. Okay. It's basically a privatized defense app. You just make little networks with people, and then
wow, I think the two of us actually talked about that as an idea. So some bastard
it's a fully fledged idea. Yeah, the guys, it's an app, and I've got it on my phone, and I can't remember it. You make networks, and then if you have a burglary or if you have a fire or something, you press the button, and everyone in your network gets lit up to this. They're trying to make it geographically based too, so that everyone in your area who has the app also gets notified. It's about privatizing and distributing defense and emergency services.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I bloody love it. I proselytize it every time I can. Am I using that word right?
I'll be right into that as soon as I can. Because I mean, even a lot of hardcore libertarians say that's impossible, and it's sort of getting off the ground now.
Yeah.
We better wrap it up actually. So we'll just finish by asking you, Connor. You mentioned that the party's platform probably won't change too radically.
Not on the whole. We might go one way or another, but it'll even out generally.
So I mean, how do
we're a facilitator?
Yeah. Do you see I mean, I don't think you're going to be co-opted by big money interests or anything like that. Like
Gina, give money.
Gina. But I mean, do you see the party actually growing, or perhaps it's just going to go down the route of the other minor micro parties, or do you see a bright future for the LDP?
I do. I see as more people learn about it. I mean, we have not saturated the Australian, the potential Australian market for libertarianism. We've not made that many arguments. We've not advertised that much. There is, just as someone said, there's a lot of ruin in the nation. I think there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of growth in the LDP. There's huge amounts to still go, and then I think we'll be a great facilitator for helping other parties and other groups get off the ground. As with you guys, I mean, how much of the libertarian scene in Australia did you know before you came to the LDP meeting?
Oh, bugger all.
But it's all, yeah. This is what I keep finding about so many libertarian things in Australia, is that there are elements. They're out there, but we don't know about each other. And there's a hell of a lot of networking to do. There's a hell of a lot of advertising, getting the message out. I mean, people who've properly heard a libertarian argument, the case for libertarianism in Australia, single-digit percentage points. Once we get to 80+%, then we've got a plateau for the LDP or what might succeed it. And then we're just like the market. You're going to get more and more specialised. The LDP is the break in to this market of libertarianism. We're here to break the ice. We're here to tell people about it, and then as it grows over years and decades, libertarianism in Australia will grow into all sorts of different groups, all serving different needs. I see a fantastic future ahead, and the LDP is dare I say privileged to be at the forefront of that. And we need all the help which we can get, but it'll be a great journey, great experience.
All right, cool. Glad to see your optimism there, because there's a lot of very pessimistic libertarians.
Oh, I am the enthusiastic amateur.
That's good. Okay, well, Connor, thanks very much for joining us.
No, thank you.
Best of luck in your campaign for the seat of Canning. So Aussie Libertarians, we are at aussielibertarians.com, and check out our Facebook and YouTube pages and channels. Thank you.